Hey, fantasy fanatics, what's going on? It's Thursday. It's Razzball Radio. This is the Fantasy Sports Network. I love Thursdays for lots of reasons. One of them is, usually we have the beautiful guys from Project Roto coming in, but you know what? I can't call him a pinch hitter because you're our Tuesday regular, but I have the most beautiful man in fantasy sports, Tehol Beddick, with me right now. What's up, Tehol?
Greetings, how's it going, buddy? We have a chat. Somebody wanted to challenge me for that title on Twitter this week.
Come on, the most beautiful man in fantasy? Who tried to do that?
Wait, I think you were on the tweet. I don't know. I don't know the guy, but I was offended and hurt.
Bro, who else can be rocking a pink jacket?
Nobody. But to be honest, nobody.
Tehol, it's great to have you, man.
Maybe Sky. I'd like to see Sky in the pink.
Oh, that's a good call, man. I'm man enough to wear pink. Hey, I'm wearing powder blue today. All right, listen, we got a killer show today because not only do we have Tehol, we're going to preview Thursday Night Football, do a little DraftKings. Of course, it's Thursday, so we got my man Joe Lisi going to break down some of the college football games. We got all that today. And tomorrow, real special guests. I'll give you a hint.
I'm back?
It's got to do with a documentary about fantasy. And why you're not in it, I don't know. I don't know how that one slipped by the goalie.
Yeah, I'm going to need this guy's number immediately.
All right, I'll let him know. I'll let him know we have him on tomorrow. Okay, so here's the dealio. Let's talk a little bit about the Thursday night game. Saints -3 at the Panthers. I was making my picks because I'm in an office pool for absolutely no money. Right. I was making my picks this week, and I was really tempted to take the Saints -3 just because Carolina has looked out of sync. They've been kind of up and down a little bit. Cam's not cooking right now, and if Cam's not cooking in the kitchen, you're not getting a meal. So I was tempted to take the Saints, but I decided to stay away from that game. What are a couple of things you're going to be looking at in particular for this game?
Well, yeah, the Saints are -3, and I actually, if I was going to bet on the game, I'd probably take them just because even with the loss at Detroit a couple weeks ago, they kind of were in control of that game for the most part. I think they'll be all right. They have less weaknesses than Carolina right now, but fantasy-wise, I like Cam Newton to have a monster game. I mean, you saw Russell Wilson was a little hit or miss, but that was against Carolina. But we're going to get Wilson against the Saints.
Did you want to take a break, have a coffee, and all right? Let's talk about Mark Ingram. 172 yards last week. I mean, this is going to be the key thing I'm looking at. I think he is legitimate as long as he's healthy this year. No one agrees with me, especially not Pat Mayo from the Fantasy Sports Network. Boy, did we have it out on SiriusXM a couple weeks ago about that. How do you think Ingram's going to do, buddy?
Oh, the former Heisman, he's going to be good, man. He's looked good the last 2 weeks or the last 1 week. Coming back off the injury, he wasn't so good 2 weeks ago. But he's going to be good to go, man. I mean, he looks good. I mean, part of it, it's a little hard to tell with the Packers' defense being just terrible all the way around, especially against the run D. I mean, he looked like Adrian Peterson and looked like the best back in the game against them. But I think they're just going to pound him. I mean, it worked before. Why not keep riding it, especially on our nice road game, get him working. I think he's going to have another 100-yard day.
Yeah, I'm with you. What about Jimmy Graham? He was not bad last week. Had 5 catches for 50-odd yards and a touchdown after he was a decoy 2 weeks ago. When is he going to be back in the flow? Like, I am sitting here jonesing for a Jimmy Graham 2-touchdown day. Any chance it's going to happen against Carolina? I know it's tough defense, but come on, give me something here.
Yeah, their defense doesn't impress me that much. They played real well against Seattle last week, but who knows about Seattle's offense. But, they've given up a ton of points on the road the past few weeks. They're back at home. Graham's got a great chance. You saw he had the TD last week. Hopefully the shoulder's just a little bit better. He hasn't had much time, but it looked just dead. I mean, he's lucky he got that nice TD last week because he's out there struggling to block and stuff. He's like, if their record wasn't so bad, I probably would have sat him if I was them the last couple weeks, but they need him out there, and there's just as good a chance as anyone he'll get you 1 or 2 TDs this week.
All right, head football editor over at Razzball.com is Jay Longfellow, a.k.a. Jay Wrong. But this week, I said I got to start calling you Jay Right because he's 19th out of 122 experts at fantasypros.com in terms of projections. He's killing it, man. He's killing it. He's eating it. And one of the reasons is he had Greg Olsen going into the season Get him as actually as his number 2 tight end, and man, has he delivered? Can he keep this up?
Yeah, well, not if teams like this do what the Seahawks did last week and rotate coverage over on him, because I mean you only have Benjamin, the rookie. It's the only other guy you got to worry about covering. Kotri, Avant, these guys were horrible, bad signings. I knew it wasn't going to work out there. Lucky Benjamin has kind of surpassed whatever kind of learning curve they thought there was going to be for him. He's been great for someone they thought was going to be a project. He stepped up. But Olsen's the only other real legit weapon over there. So, I mean, he's going to get a ton of targets, but like we saw last week, he only had 1 catch. The Seahawks rotated coverage over his way, and it just became difficult. But I don't see that being a problem this week. The Saints secondary is gross.
Yeah. Okay. Now, notice, if you're listening right now to the podcast, by the way, if you're watching this on Fantasy Sports Network, you're very intelligent. But if you want to find this as a podcast, you can find it on iTunes. There's the Razzball podcast, which is everything. Or you can do Razzball baseball or Razzball football if you just want those specific sports. But for those of you watching on TV, in case you're not listening, you can see that Mr. Tehol here, you got a couple of Seahawks jerseys hanging up behind you. Let me ask this. As a guy with such impeccable style, so fashion forward, when you're rocking a jersey like that, I mean, what are you wearing with those? You wearing like jeggings and, high tops? I mean, how do you put that together?
Well, it's simple, man. You got to put it together. You got to come with the Ferragamo blue waterproof boots. It's raining out here. You got to throw on a little, maybe like a Gucci scarf or something like that. Wrap it around. Come with the matching beanie or something like that. You just got to keep it swagged out, man. You got to come with the belt. Bring the whole thing together. I mean, that's the only way, man. We're not seeing me in the jersey and the sweatpants with the gut hanging out. We're not doing it old school jersey style over here. We're doing it big in Seattle. And,
so what do you do like pregame or postgame? I mean, you can't eat wings with that much style happening because it's potentially too messy.
No, I fast all day on game days.
You know what we need? We need a clothing sponsor for this show, just for Tehol's segment, man. That would be epic. All right, listen, Tehol, here's what we're going to do, brother. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to break down some of the great values at DraftKings.com that we really like this week, and see if we can make some money, man. They're giving away $1 million every week. Love you, DraftKings. Love you. Enter promo code Razzball when signing up, and if you win $1 million, I wear extra large. I'm just saying. Although if you win $1 billion, man, I expect something more than a T-shirt. All right, we'll be right back. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Nick Capozzi at the controls here. We got my man, Tehol Bedick. You can follow him at Bedick143 on Twitter. Of course, 143 stands for I love you. And one thing I love doing is playing daily fantasy over at DraftKings.com. They're giving away a boatload of money. It's bigger than a boat. It's like a cruise ship full of money every week right now. They're just making millionaires. Like, how do I get in on that?
I'm trying to get on it. Where's the Razzball yacht? I'm ready to roll out.
Here's the problem. Right now. You live in Washington. I live in Arizona. 2 of the 5 states you cannot play in. See? It's holding us back. It's holding us. I thought this was the land of opportunity.
Is there a way around that? I don't know.
Yeah, you got to move. You got to move down to Oregon.
You're right.
Okay, let's start at quarterback. You really like Kaepernick's value at $7 million up against St. Louis. He's not been great this year. I mean, you're hoping for one of those big 30-point games. You think it's this week against St. Louis?
I didn't love a lot of the matchups this week for quarterback on DraftKings. It's kind of a tough week. I thought there's some value there at $7 million because he's way down there in ways. I mean, you could always go pay up for Andrew Luck. He's at the Giants. I mean, I'm sure they'll be checking it just the same out there. It's not tasty a matchup as usual, but I wouldn't mind doing that on a week like this. But Kaepernick roasted the Rams last time they played, probably his best game of the season. I think he's going to give it. He might give it to him again. I think there's a good chance that the Rams. Where I screwed up earlier, I was talking about Russell Wilson. When he played the Rams, he ran for like over 100 yards. So Kaepernick's got a great chance to do that. I mean, because they're covered, their defense just for whatever reason doesn't account for either the read option or they're just not picking it up. So maybe they've adapted, maybe not. But he's going to throw deep and he's going to run.
All right, we'll see about that. Tehol, you said you messed up earlier. You don't mess up. You're perfect.
I know. I think we get somebody to edit that out. It's embarrassing. I don't ever like to mess up live on camera.
Hey, speaking of roasting, where's Beatrice the chicken, man? Why'd you name her Beatrice? You're in the fantasy business. You should have named her Rotisserie.
Yeah, that's right. I was that was before I was a fantasy football expert. I was just a full-on underwear model at that point, mankini model. I wasn't into that. I was just into me, my chicken, and my modeling life. We didn't really do too much
Hey,
fantasy talk.
MeUndies.com. Here we go. You want an underwear model in the fantasy game for you? There you go. All right, let's talk a couple running backs here. Jerick McKinnon, 4.7 million or 4,700 bucks. We shouldn't say millions. 4,700 bucks versus Washington. I like that. Was this guy ever going to find pay dirt in the end zone? Because if he doesn't, it's really going to hamper him in the daily game.
You're right. You're right. But they didn't have any rushing touchdowns last week, so we don't know what kind of would have happened if they got down inside the 20. Every time Asiata came in, it was a dud. He wasn't. He was almost like they had the lead and they were like, it wasn't set in stone, but they tried to run it 3 times and he just gets stuck. McKinnon was over 5 yards a carry again last week. DeMarco Murray on Monday Night Football was going for over 5 a carry before he even got touched by the Redskins. So there's a 60-yard run in there, but still, he was. Their defense just isn't good at making contact at the line of scrimmage. And if this guy gets to the second level, there's a great chance he's going to hit the pay dirt. And for that price, that's a bargain.
All right, $4,300 for Ben Tate. I'm surprised he's on this list. I mean, that's gotta pain you, like right in the gut, right in the gut. Like you've got you've got you need an appendectomy or something.
It's disgusting. I was sickened. I've been just sweating and pacing around all day. Just the fact that I even mentioning this guy on live on television again for the second week in a row. This guy looks so soft to me, but so soft. But he's so cheap, and Tampa is so bad, and their run D is one of the two worst in the NFL right now. I mean, for that low of a price, if you want to save some money, go big somewhere else. I don't have it. I feel okay about Ben Tate. I like them. It's actually pretty good value for who he's going against, but he's had good value the last 2 weeks, and it hasn't come through. This is his last chance. I'm done with him.
We'll see how it does against the Buccos. Yeah, he had that one great game when he came back from the injury, a couple touchdowns. And I'll tell you this, there's been other issues, but Cleveland had a good thing going with Weston Crowell. They bring Tate in, and they're rudderless. I'm not blaming Tate. I'm just saying there's something there. We got to dig deeper. Speaking of dig deep, let's look at a $5,000 wide receiver that you like, Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I like him. I also kind of like Randall for the Giants too. I mean, if anyone who witnessed the Steelers-Colts game this last week, I mean, it was a full-on aerial assault. I mean, the Colts defense, I keep waiting. I've been tweeting about it, waiting for them to get exposed. There's no talent. I don't understand where the talent is on the D, how they were shutting some of these teams out. It was just a lucky matchup. They have no talent back there. Eli's got to have the bye. Beckham's got to pick up the whole offense. There's a great chance he gets a score. He's real cheap. And Randall could be good too. I mean, if there's anything like that last game, Eli might throw for 4 bills on that.
Hey, we got a tweet, by the way, from regular viewer/listener, really cool guy, Jared Henry down in Houston. Actually met him on the tour. And he asked me, he said, how does Tehol keep his hair in check, especially in the wet weather of Seattle? You a hairspray guy, moose guy? What's the story there?
It's kind of like a pasty kind of stuff, not quite like a pomade. I forget the exact kind of cream it is. Some kind of thing. We're not talking LA Licks though. We're done with the LA Licks, guys. Let's throw that away. But I'm pretty adaptable though. I've used probably about every hair product known to man. But if it's raining out, you just pop out the umbrella, man. No shame. People might make fun of you, but whatever, man. They don't got hair like that.
All right. People weren't making fun of you when you called out Jordan Reed and said he was going to eat. He was going to eat defenses. He was going to eat tight ends. He was going to eat linebackers. Well, he hasn't been healthy. But he was back, and he did pretty good. $4,400 this weekend. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, as far as being an affordable tight end on the list, I like him. He's getting back in the groove. He's had a couple solid games in a row. You saw McCoy really feeding him at crunch time last week, making some real big grabs. And Harrison Smith's one of the best safeties in the game for Minnesota, but he's going to have to be helping deep on Deshaun Jackson. You know, they got Pierre Garçon. There's Niles Paul, the other tight end. He's got to have a lot of duties out there. They're not going to be able to just sit him on Jordan Reed, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be recommending him. But I think he's going to be able to find a lot of holes in that middle of that offense. Whether it's, I'm pretty sure McCoy will get the start again. If RG3 does, great. But I think it's a pretty good value.
They're saying that RG3 is going to be Week 9 starting. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if I'm buying that. Okay, listen, Tehol, we got to wrap this up, brother. Thank you. Great analysis. Remember, sign up at DraftKings if you haven't yet. Enter promo code Razzball when signing up to get a first-time deposit match and an entry into a weekly game. Tehol, you're the best, buddy. We'll be back with Joe Lisi from GoForThe2.com. Talk a little college football right after this. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. It's Thursday, and the Thursday cannot go by without me talking to my man, Joseph Lisi. I like calling you Joe, though. You know, you Joe. Joe's your friend. Joe's your buddy. Joe from GoForThe2.com. He is the most plugged-in college football guy I know. Joe, how have you not been, like, headhunted by one of the major networks yet? Because I don't know anyone who does the research and work and is as thorough as you are. Plus, you're handsome. And you know what? We had Tehol on earlier, the most handsome man in fantasy. Look at you dressed so sharp. Might be the most handsome man in college football analysis right now.
I have to hire you with my age. Get the word out. I'm available.
All right, let's get to it. Hey, by the way, you know, I know a lot of times there's other guys in fantasy and stuff and in sports that watch us and listen to us, and we love it. And, you know, I get asked from time to time to come on a podcast. If you ever want Joe to come on your podcast, talk college football, this guy loves talking college football at GoForThe2 on Twitter. All right, Joe, let's get right to it, man, because there's some big matchups. You got me watching college football this year. I was glued to that Ole Miss LSU game. I watched it in my neighbor's driveway. That's what I love about America. People watch football in their driveways. That's how you spend a weekend. So number 3, Auburn is heading down to number 4, Ole Miss. Ole Miss -2 in Oxford. It's a big battle here in the SEC West. Who's going to take this one, Joe?
Well, when you look at it, the College Football Committee, Nick, named Auburn as the number 3 team in the nation. Ole Miss is number 4. Let's look at Auburn. Last week struggled a little bit at home against South Carolina. Had to pull that victory out 42-35, but they rushed for 395 yards against the Gamecock defense, 8.4 yards per carry, created 3 turnovers, and they have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in college football in Nick Marshall. When you look at Ole Miss last week, they struggled last week on road in Baton Rouge. They gave up 264 yards rushing on 55 attempts, 4.8 yards per carry for LSU Tigers. They wore them down last week. I think this is a very tough matchup for Ole Miss. Look for Auburn to stretch that defense sideline to sideline, and Auburn gets the upset in Oxford this weekend.
Let me ask you a quick question. I need a quick answer, Joe, but why didn't Ole Miss? I'm watching that game. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm eating my Doritos or Tostitos. Whoever wants to be the chip sponsor, we're in. And why didn't they kick the field goal?
Well, the 5-yard penalty hurt Ole Miss, coupled the fact that the kicker did miss a field goal earlier in the matchup. And when you look at the kicking game overall, in the win against Alabama, he missed 2 straight extra points. One on a penalty, got a do-over, and missed the next one. So I think that had a little bit of a factor in Hugh Freeze's decision. You can't knock Hugh Freeze for making the call. He knows his kicker better than anyone, but I think the penalty hurt them in the end.
Yeah, that's what I love. I can throw anything at you, Joe. Okay, let's talk about ASU Sun Devils, 14th in the nation, heading up to Utah, number 17. Big matchup here. ASU, it's a good year for Arizona and Mississippi schools. Who do you like in this one?
Well, Arizona State has dominated this matchup. They've won the last 10 straight by an average of 26 points per game. The last 3 matchups have been decided by 17 points per game, so that favors Arizona State in this match.
Yeah.
But when they're very dominant on the offense and defensive lines. They have a solid defensive line that has 35 sacks through 7 ball games, and they like to pound the football. Defensively, Arizona State giving up 180 rushing yards per game. Nick, I think this is a Utah victory on the road. They're just a blue-collar team playing very well.
Don't tell me that. I want to have a good weekend in the driveway.
They get the victory. 2 solid efforts by Arizona and Arizona State last weekend, but I think Utah is the better team at this point in the season.
All right, TCU versus West Virginia in Morgantown. The Horned Frogs, number 7 in the nation. West Virginia, number 20. Big 12, big matchup. Who do you like?
Well, they're hitting on all cylinders. They put up an 80 spot last week, 82 points at home against Texas Tech. They're averaging 50.4 points per game. That's tops in the nation with a dynamic quarterback in Trev Boykin, 21 touchdowns, only 3 INTs on the year. You look at West Virginia, solid effort last week in picking up the road victory over Oklahoma State. But a key statistic, TCU is plus 12 in turnover margin, West Virginia minus 9 in turnover margin, and more importantly, they're minus 9 in turnover margin at home. I think defense in the season, they're the more complete team. They get a decisive victory on Saturday.
Sorry, that's West Virginia?
TCU.
TCU. Sorry, you cut out just for a second there. Okay, TCU.
Yes.
Tennessee 3-4 versus South Carolina 4-4. No, 2 unranked teams here playing down in South Carolina. Why is this one on the list? Usually we got elite matchups.
Yeah, we do, but this one's a very interesting matchup within the SEC conference. You look at Tennessee, they fell behind last week 27-0 to arch rival Alabama. Really came on in the second half, led by sophomore quarterback Joshua Dobbs. He put up 192 passing yards, 75 rushing yards, and he really brought Tennessee. That's a solid effort. They could have quit, but they didn't. You look at South Carolina last week, they pushed Auburn to the limit on the road, couldn't get it done. Now they come back home. This is sort of a rivalry game, Nick. I like Tennessee on the road. I think they haven't won an SEC game all year, but they get the victory in Columbia on Saturday. I think this is a young team that is starting to come into its own. Look for Joshua Dobbs to pull off the upset on Saturday.
All right, it's South Carolina -7. So if you're liking the money line, if you're liking Tennessee to outright win. By the way, when I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago using all your picks, it was a good weekend. All right, last game real quick here. Kentucky 5-3 versus Mizzou 6-2. Missouri -6.5. Who you like, Joey?
Well, Kentucky pushed Mississippi State to the limit last week. They put up 504 total yards of offense. Their quarterback, Patrick Tolles, 390 passing yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 on the ground. And Missouri hasn't looked good at home. They've dropped 2 ball games to Georgia and Indiana, but they have an outside chance to win the SEC East should Georgia drop a game down the stretch. I think Missouri has the talent to really have a decisive victory on Saturday. Look for them to enter this ball game emotional and focused. Quarterback Matty Mark rebounds after 3 subpar performances, and Missouri picks up the decisive victory on Saturday.
All right, real quick here, buddy, about 15 seconds. If you're picking the 4 teams for the playoff today, who are the 4 most deserving?
Right now, I like Michigan State. I like Georgia. I like Auburn right now, and I think you have to mention Notre Dame should they run the table. But that's what I'm picking towards the end of the season. I mean, I'm projecting out right now.
I'm putting you on the spot. All right, Joe, we got to wrap this up. I apologize. Joe Lisi at goforthe2.com. You can follow him on Twitter at goforthe2. Number 2, Joe, you're the best. Big show tomorrow. Tune in. Well, it's always a big show when Joe's on, but big one tomorrow. We got special guests. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. See you tomorrow.